Do you want to stay more focused on the right goals in your life, or even just figure out what the right goals are for you? Do you want clarity? Do you want better work-life balance? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Success Through Failure.
Welcome to the Success Through Failure podcast, the show that reveals failure as your path to success. You'll listen to intriguing interviews with some of the most successful people on the planet and learn how their failures became a launchpad for success and how yours can too. Here's your host, former Division I All-American wrestler, former Division I head coach, speaker, and personal coach, Jim Harshaw.
Welcome to another episode of Success Through Failure. This is your host, Jim Harshaw, and today I'm bringing you another solo episode. I just got pulled over by a police officer, so wasn't quite prepared for that just a few minutes ago, but it's all good. I swore I was just got busted speeding, or at least thought I was going to get thrown in the clink for something, but just my registration didn't have my registration stickers on, so car's actually registered, but I just forgot to put my stickers on. So anyway, it's always good news whenever you get pulled over. And anyway, I hope you're doing well. Another solo episode. Love bringing these to you. Up to episode, gosh, I don't even know what number this is going to be when I get hit publish, but approaching 180 episodes. Been doing this for over 3 years now, and so this has been it's been a labor of love, and I just love bringing you these solo episodes. The topic that, let me say this first. If you've been listening for a long time and you've downloaded any of my action plans, you know that you get a link. So whenever you go to my website and you download any of the action plans, there's an action plan for just about every episode. It's basically a 1 or 2 page PDF, the Cliff Notes or the Spark Notes, they call them these days, for every episode. Plus there's an ebook, a 12-page ebook on how to start your own mastermind group. There's a goal setting template. There's all kinds of great resources in there. And if you go to my website and you go to jimharshawjr.com/action and you download any of the action plans, or if you get access to the action plans, if you get access to one, you get access to them all. And what happens is you get a link emailed to you immediately. And I urge you to bookmark that link, because that is the link that will have every action plan as soon as it goes live every single week. The reason I mention this, because some people will email me, "Hey Jim, I can't get access to the action plans. I'm on your email list, but I'm not getting access to the action plan." So you can, as soon as you get on my email list, as soon as you subscribe to get the access to the action plans, you'll just bookmark that link that I send you. The other thing is, if you've been listening for a long time and we haven't had a chance to talk, grab a time on my calendar. You can go to jimharshawjr.com/apply and apply for a free clarity call. And this is just a 30-minute block of time where you and I get a chance to talk and dive into any areas of your life you want to improve. If you've never worked with a coach before, this is a good way to kick the tires and test it out and see what it's like. So again, jimharshawjr.com/apply. But let's dive into today's topic. And if you follow me on social media, you may have seen a post on December 7th. I posted it at about 5:30 in the morning. I posted a tweet and I said, "Today is the first day in my life that I don't want to see the sun come up. My brother-in-law just passed away unexpectedly a few moments ago. My sister and her 3 sweet children have a new reality to face when the sun rises today." And I'm not sharing this to bring you down. This is going to be an awesome episode about a celebration of life and how to live your life right and live your life intentionally. So there's going to be a lot of value in this episode, and something that I learned from my brother-in-law. And it was just real quickly about that drive. I left Charlottesville, Virginia at 2 a.m. and just kept getting updates throughout the night on his condition, and it was an unexpected passing, total shock to everybody, 3 young children and my sister, and so it was just an utter shock. And I really didn't want to see the sunrise. I wish that night would have gone on forever, because we wouldn't have had to deal with the day. And but it was a sad day, and something we're still working through as a family. But what I want to share, the whole purpose of this episode is to share with you how a life lived intentionally and a life lived right can really impact you, not only in life, but your family and after you pass. And in this situation, it was, man, I just learned so much. My brother-in-law is an amazing guy. He was just, he and I share a birthday, just a great, amazing handyman. He could build just about anything. And, but at the same time, he had a big CFO job for Oxford real estate firm in downtown Pittsburgh. And so he kind of lived this dual life, right? Just a white collar guy with a high impact job and a big job. And then on the weekends and the evenings, he just wanted to be, have his work gloves on, working in the yard, in his garden, etc. Just a really interesting dude. And so there are some things that I wrote down in the days following his death that I really felt like I was like, wow, this is some really impressive stuff that I didn't know about him that really helped me. It's stuff that helped me learn, right? Learn about how to live my own life and stuff that I want to share with you. And in my program, Reveal Your Path, one of the questions is one of the exercises I ask you a question called the funeral exercise, and it's that question that I didn't invent this, but it's this question where you kind of reflect on what you want people to say in your eulogy, in your funeral. And we go through sort of different people, and what would they say? What would you want them to say? And actually, what would they say today? And right, if there's any delta there, if there's any difference, that's one area that you need to work on. And I actually had a chance to give one of the eulogies at Steve's funeral. Steve Nicotra was his name, and there were three really, actually I should say two. I don't know how great mine was, but the other two guys that spoke as well were just awesome. The one was hilarious. Steve was a funny guy. And then the other one was, was from a good friend. And then his boss also spoke. And they were just amazing. My eulogy was easy to write and to read and to speak because he's just an amazing guy. And when you live your life in a certain way, your impact goes far beyond your days here on this earth. And so here are several lessons that I learned from my brother-in-law that really I'm carrying with me and going to incorporate more and more into my own personal life as well as into my coaching. And the first one is this. So in my program in Reveal Your Path, the number one area where we set goals, the first area where we set goals is in relationships. And, relationships precedes anything else in terms of importance of setting goals. So whenever I work with people about setting goals, people immediately want to go to wealth or career goals, or maybe they want to go to a health goal, like health and fitness, losing X amount of pounds or whatever. But relationships is first, and relationships is first for a reason. It was just reinforced to me how important relationships are. So Steve was a guy who, he was quiet, he was humble, and you didn't really see him maybe as this, just really, overly warm, gregarious type of person. I should say he was warm, but he was quiet, and I just assumed he was an accountant by trade, and I just assumed he went to work every day, locked himself in his office, and then, for 8 hours, and then came home at the end of the day. But that wasn't the case. There was this overwhelming amount of love that was poured out at his funeral. Over 500 people showed up. There were lines out the door. People waited an hour and a half. It was just this overwhelming amount of support and love. Just a lot of people that he worked with, certainly a lot of family, a lot of friends, a lot of my sister's family and friends, a lot of Steve's family and friends, but also, just other people from around the community and school and et cetera, et cetera. But there were so many people who Steve worked with that showed up, and people that were not even at his company that he just, he interacted with from other companies. They got word and they showed up. And it was just fascinating to hear so many people talk about how kind, how generous, how funny, how easy he was to work with, all these amazing things that shone through and how much he really paid attention to other people. There was, for example, one of the maintenance guys, handyman, that worked in his building, one of the high rises in downtown Pittsburgh. He actually retired 6 years ago, this maintenance man. And he showed up. He hadn't been there for 6 years, and he heard about Steve's passing, and he showed up, and it was incredible because he said that Steve said every day we get a coffee, and Steve would talk to me. We would have a conversation. He's like, he didn't talk down to me. He just wanted to talk. We just chatted. We were just buddies, right? And it was pretty cool. And just all these great stories about how, there's a couple people who showed up there like, hey, we only worked here for a couple of months, but he just had an impact on me. So just the importance of relationships. Now that's at work. Now at home, family, same thing. He was just this amazing father, amazing husband, amazing dad. He dedicated himself to his family. He worked really hard, and he did that for his family. And he's deeply, deeply missed, as you can imagine, at home. And I think, maybe to some extent that goes without saying, because I'm dedicating a whole podcast to this guy. But great family man. But really, the importance of his relationships extended beyond just his family and into his work life, his professional life, and it showed. And that love came back to my sister and her family, and will continue to come back for a long, long time, because of those relationships outside of the home. So, and those people, so many people stepped up, right? And that love just comes back, right? Whenever you build those relationships and put people first, then that all comes back to you in just unexpected ways and unexpected times. So that was the first one, relationships. The second one was this, consistency. Steve worked there for 28 years. And, because of this, he had this institutional knowledge, which increased his value there. And he, worked his way up the whole way up to the top, to CFO. And that consistency, that day in, day out, showing up and workmanlike attitude brought him a lot of success. And I just learned that the value of that consistency, right? Created, in part those deep relationships, and just saw that the stability that consistency brought to his life. The next one is this. Like I said, he was a CFO, but he was humble. Humility is another lesson I learned from Steve. So, when you talk to him, nothing was a big deal, right? He never put himself over anybody else. Whenever you praised him for something or said, wow, that was amazing. He had this deck that he built out in his backyard a few years ago, and it's amazing, like really, really, really well built. I mean, if there's not a board that's a 16th of an inch off. And if you praise him for that, he's like, yeah, but there's this mess up and that mess up, and only he would see. But he's very humble, not only in his personal life, but in his professional life. So it was just something I really didn't realize, I'll be honest, how big his job was until after he passed. And just kind of, went down to his workplace and spent some time with his boss, also named Steve. And it was just amazing to really understand the impact and the loss, not only relationship-wise there, but also the loss, how that's going to impact the organization overall. He was highly, highly valued, and but you would never know that from the way he talked about things. The next one is just kind of interesting because I live in a world where, I shouldn't say I live in the world, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, certainly on this show. I interview a lot of entrepreneurs, and sometimes, especially these folks with a personal brand, they really espouse the value of entrepreneurship, and that's true, and that's great. But sometimes, there's almost this view of looking down upon people who work like a 9-to-5, 8-to-5 job, and I just see Steve as the perfect example of the value of just staying locked in, staying focused, staying committed, and really committing to something for the long haul. And he had a job that wasn't entrepreneurial, but it was a perfect fit for him. And it's important that people find the perfect fit for you. Everybody wants to start a business, right? Everybody has this business idea in mind. And I'll be honest, Steve had some sort of business ideas of his own that we had talked about from time to time, but he really found what worked for him and he stuck to it. And he was very successful because of that. So entrepreneurship versus the 8-to-5, you got to find what fits. You got to find what fits you, your occupation, professionally and personally, of course. The next one is humor. Steve always had a perfectly timed sense of humor. I mean, he wasn't a professional comedian, but man, this guy, he could just cut the tension with a joke, or with catching you off guard with something just goofy or silly. Matter of fact, Sean, who gave one of the eulogies, his eulogy was hilarious. We were laughing the whole time because he was just telling funny stories about Steve and just different funny things that he did. One great example that was really early on, right after he got the marriage license, whenever he got married my sister, he emailed a copy of the marriage license to my mom. And Steve had never been married before, as far as he told us. We never knew of any prior marriages or anything like that. And when he emailed the marriage certificate to my mom, saying like, "Hey, we got our marriage certificate, check this out," he doctored it to say that he had been married twice previously. And my mom just didn't know how to react. And Steve actually called my sister and said, "Hey, your mom's going to be calling you, freaking out. Just go along with it." And then he hung up. So, sent my mom the marriage certificate. My mom immediately called my sister saying, "Hey, did you look at the marriage certificate? Had Steve been married before?" And my sister had to bite her tongue and kind of go along with it for a while. But he would always be pulling these little pranks, these little practical jokes, and just kind of, lower the tension and keep everybody laughing a little bit, keep everybody off guard a little bit. So, just the value of that humor is going to be deeply missed, but something that you can always keep in mind. You can always find the funny, find the humor in even tough situations. So Steve was great at that. And here's the next one: is your job isn't your identity, right? Steve was a Renaissance man. Your job does not have to be your identity. You can do one thing at work and you can be totally something different at home that may not seem congruent, but they can both be congruent. So, you can be a plumber and a wine connoisseur, or you can be a teacher and an amateur race car driver on the weekends or something, right? You can be a white collar CFO and love working with your hands and driving a beat up truck on the weekends like Steve. So, filling yourself in different ways, right? Having an occupation that aligns with you, but also having having hobbies and things that you do that you care about that align with you. So, making sure that you're doing those things that are important to you, right? The second goal that we always set in my program is self goals. That's around growth, impact, or fun. That's growth, impact, or fun, GIF. Those are all under the self goals category. And, making sure that you have those things that you do that fill your bucket, that help you be satisfied with your own life, helps you be the best version of yourself. And I'll leave this at the last one. The last of many lessons I learned from him was simplicity, right? Simplifying life. You don't have to be everything to everyone. You don't have to say yes to every opportunity. And like I've said many times before on this podcast, saying yes to one thing inherently means saying no to something else. Be clear about what's important to you. Be clear about what you want and cut out the things that you don't want out of your life. So these are all these great lessons that I learned from him. Unfortunately, I learned them in a very, very hard way, but these are things that I'm going to incorporate into my life. I hope you can incorporate those into your life. And again, the action plan for this, you just go to jimharshawjr.com/action. Check it out. I'll also have a link to, not that, you're all that interested in reading it, but he's got a really cool obituary. It helps you understand what kind of person he was, and it may just guide you a little bit in your life, that show you, give you some insight on just how to live intentionally and how to live the good life, right? The good life, isn't always what we think it is, right? It's not, this fame and fortune and certain things that we all want in our life. Sometimes the good life is simplicity. It's love, it's relationships, it's hard work, it's dedication, It's consistency and all these things that I talked about today. So hope these bring some value and insight into your life as you go through your day. Celebrate those loved ones that are in your life now. Give them all a hug, and thank you for listening to my little podcast episode here dedicated to Steve Nicotra, my late brother-in-law. Thank you, and as always, take the time to get clear on your goals and embrace failure as a stepping stone on your path to success.